Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is still doing well, and welcome to tonight's second half. Before we jump into it, a couple quick links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman, Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click the like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment and share the video. Why? Well, because all of these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter, and they are appreciated. And with that, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to today's second bonus, shall we? Alright, so about 2 years ago, I had received an email from a subscriber who had shared an encounter with me. He had typed it out and left his phone number. At the end of the email said, "Please do not share this until I am ready for you to share it." I've had numerous encounters like that. One would be from Terry. His brother Jody had shared an encounter pretty much right when I started the channel. And I sat on it for, wow, a long time, 3 years, 3.5 years. This gentleman, Ron, wanted to wait specifically because he has been not living in fear or looking over his shoulder, but more or less concerned for his dad. His dad passed away about 4 months ago. His dad was named George. And this experience takes place in Desha County, Arkansas. Ron now lives in California due to work. He is from Arkansas. His dad, George, actually still lived in Arkansas, passed away there. And that's a big concern for him because he lived so far away from his dad. And just in case after he shared it, anything kind of popped up, he wanted to be either around or to wait until his dad had passed away, or not share it at all. So at around midnight, as many of you know, yesterday was my daughter's 16th birthday / Tom Mezik's 8th year of missing. I get a text and it says, "It's time to share my encounter." That's it. That's it. And I text back, "Sorry, don't know who this is." I have a notebook that I write all subscribers' phone numbers down in it. I don't save them in my phone for a reason, just in case I ever lose my phone. And he texts back probably 2 minutes later, "This is Ron from California. It has to do with the encounter my dad, George, and I had." He said, "I'm ready to talk now if you are." And I said, let's let's talk. I'm I'm kind of amped up and ready to go. So I call him immediately. Hey, how are you? How have you been? What's going on? And he said, my dad passed away right at the end of summer, and I've been dealing with his home, cleaning it out and such, and flying back and forth to California while working remotely when in Arkansas to clean out his dad's home. And while he's been working and stuff, he listens to the channel and listens to a few other podcasts and stuff. He's a really cool guy. Not obsessed with the paranormal or cryptid, but really doesn't mind hearing new ideas and crazy encounters because of the one that he had. He had heard Jesse's experience and said, after I heard that, I was in California and I wanted to wait until I got back to Arkansas, got the last kind of thing done there, and then come back home to where I didn't have to go, travel too much, and knew I was going to be in California for a couple of months. And I was like, yeah. And he goes, well, I heard it. And right after I heard that, he said, it's time that I share my dad's experience, mine and my dad's experience, because people need to know what these sea suckers in the government do. His exact words, I'm not going to say it because, I would, but y'all know I would, but it's just, I don't want to get in trouble with YouTube. So his dad and him were hunting. He was brought up a hunter, raised a hunter, and there's a section of land that they hunt, and it's called Caul Island, and it's in Desha County, Arkansas. Now, the island is not really an island. It is and it isn't. It's more or less a peninsula, and it's right off of the Mississippi River, and there's Lake Whittington on one side, and then Bar Lake. What happened was, at one point, the Mississippi was a larger river and flooded this land. After it kind of shrunk back, there was these patch of land kind of surrounded by this water. And it's a naturally occurring thing. It happens all over the world. And it's just this kind of land that is jutted out and pretty much surrounded by water. It is and it isn't a peninsula. There's a little kind of patch of land to get to this island, Caul Island. Now, Caul Island is kind of known for boar hunting. There are some black bear, supposedly he's never seen any, but supposedly there's some alligator somewhere in the vicinity of Caul Island. It's also a historic battle happened back in the day there. So they go on this kind of boar hunt. Himself, his dad, George, two guys that George had worked with and known since Ron was a child. And they proceed to, do their hunt. They kind of set up like a makeshift camp. There's a couple of roads that are not roads, they're dirt roads, but you can park your vehicle and kind of camp there. Well, they have it's a Mercedes van RV, and one of his dad's friends has a similar one. And what they did was they kind of parked next to each other, or side by side, so the doors were facing each other, and they kind of made this little camp area. Nothing big. They were only going to be there for a day or two. They just went out boar hunting. Ron hunts with a 270. He's hunted with this rifle for years, this caliber. He has taken down some rather big game, some black bear with it, deer obviously, and such. He knows that it's got stopping power. That round has supposedly, some hunters have taken out moose with it. So it's a good round. So they're parked on a road that is called Rim Road. It's pretty much in the middle of Caul Island, and it runs pretty much right across it. Where they're parked, there's a couple of bodies of water on each side of the road, lots of woods, some clear-cut property as well. I don't believe there's any houses on this portion of land. So they get there, and obviously they don't have to cook outside. They've got, little inside propane stoves and stuff. And, George is old, his buddies are old, and they just want to, kind of go out for the hunt and kind of have that comfort, get done hunting and sit back and watch Wheel of Fortune or Jeopardy or whatever, after the hunt, and have a cup of coffee in the, warmth, eat, so they get there and they have their, set up, hang out, shoot the breeze, and kind of plan the day. Like, this is what we're going to do. This is where we'll go. I've heard and know that the boar are fairly decent here. So the night goes well. They go to sleep. They get up, and it's not like deer hunting season for them. They don't get up bright and early 4 a.m. And go out. They get up around 8, get ready, and go. Like I said, it wasn't, if they didn't get anything, they would have been fine. If they did, that would have been even better. So they start kind of walking out into this marshy land, pretty close to this lake that's in the middle of this island. And there's lots of little lakes from when the water had flooded and created this island or peninsula, whatever you want to call it. Its name is Caul Island, but technically it's a peninsula. And they don't have any sightings. They don't have any physical sightings. They do see a lot of prints and a lot of tracks, some, rutting around with the nose and stuff. So they do see evidence of hog being around that area. So they're like, well, it's only a matter of time before we bag one. Now, a couple of hours go by and they hear a shot off in the distance. And the report kind of, if you're a hunter, you know exactly what I'm talking about. About a minute later, over the radio or walkie, it's George's friend, and they got a hog. They're like, that's awesome, first one of the day, yada yada. And they didn't get anything, George and Ron, at this point. So they're, kind of trudging on and want to, get one too, maybe two, maybe three, to, whatever. So they continue to walk and they end up in a large kind of dense set of woods, which is probably northeast of this one lake called Dad's Lake. They're pretty deep in the woods off the lake. They started to follow this game trail, which kind of, hogs will just rip through the woods, So they're kind of following and talking, and all of a sudden, Ron is, looking around, and George looks over at his son and says, "Stop talking for a second and listen." It's dead silent. And Ron kind of looks at his dad, and they both get this kind of looking around look. Is there a bear in the vicinity? Is there a hog, a male hog in the vicinity that, might charge at him with its tusks and stuff? They kind of not really get back to back, but they're pretty close to each other. And it stays dead silent for 20 to 30 minutes. Just an eerie vibe going on. They don't hear any kind of walking. They don't hear anything that would be predator related. So they're kind of on edge, like what's out here, and that made everything go silent, if it was a bear or a male hog or whatever, it would have obviously made itself known by now. It's now around 5 o'clock in the afternoon. They're both getting hungry. Screw it. We'll go back and then get something to eat. Maybe we'll go out right before it gets dark and take advantage of, the lighting and such. Now, at that time, it was legal to hunt hog on private land with thermal or night vision. On this land where they are, no. So they had to kind of eat and then beat the sunset. They radio in to the two other fellas, hey, we're going back to camp. We're going to get something to eat, some water, and then we might go back out a little bit before it gets too dark. Sure thing. We'll figure this out. And so they meet their two friends at their makeshift camp, and they're figuring out exactly what they're going to do. The two buddies of George is going to figure out what they're going to do with the hog. Obviously, they don't want to eat any of it, but George's friend is and does eat wild hog. Ron has said he had it once, and he said it was absolutely disgusting. But apparently George's friend really dug it. So they get back, they're eating, and they have some coffee. And now it's about 6:30, and they start heading back the way they had come, which took about an hour for them to walk to and walk back. So about 2 hours. So they are going to just kind of beat the sunset. Like if they bag something right before it's dark, they're good. Even Enron said, even if it was dark and I was able to take the shot, he said, I gonna be honest, I didn't have night vision goggles or thermal, but I did have a thermal scope. He said, and I put that on right before we left, just to be kind of tempting fate, I guess. So they get ready to go out. Ron, George, and George's two friends, they all decide to go together. It's getting to be almost dusk. They've got probably an hour, if that. And George was adamant about going to the spot where that game trail was. And he really wanted to see if they'd have any luck there. Which would have put them in the location of that silence in the woods. Which they had talked about over dinner with George's two friends, and that's why they wanted to go, because they didn't have anything strange happen. Well, they were also on the opposite side of this lake or water mass, and they know they're not going to get there, but they're going to try to get as close as possible. George, being an old timer, pretty much says, screw it. If we bag one and it's almost night, we're not doing anything illegal if we're not using night vision or thermal. So they go, and Ron is not feeling it. He's just kind of going along for the hike at this point. But George was just a real stubborn, adamant guy. He wanted to. They get probably halfway there, and they're in the deep woods. They're just trugging away, and they can hear kind of like movement, birds, the basic natural sounds. And almost like someone hit the mute button. It goes dead silent. And all four of the guys notice it at practically the same time. And they all look at each other. And the two friends of George kind of get a little nervous. They're like, what the hell? Is there a bear? Is there a bear? That's what those two guys are thinking. George, being George, just pretty much belittles them, calls them, they're all old, they're all older. And they've worked together for, years, retired together. And, so it's fun prodding, Ron's kind of back a ways from everyone, just looking around. He's nervous. The other two are nervous as well, but Ron is like, something's out here. I don't know if it's a bear. We probably shouldn't be here. In his head, that's what he's thinking. He's like, but I can't tell my old man this because he's just going to be, real vocal with everything. Well, they get standing there and they kind of hear this crunching through the woods. And all four of them kind of get together a little. They kind of stand kind of in a U shape facing the woods. Ron has unshouldered his rifle and now has his rifle not raised up, but it's at the ready to go. And so do George's friends. The only one that doesn't is George. He's just, standing there looking and wondering what the hell. And out of the woods comes a doe. Just kind of stops 60, 70 feet from everyone. Looks at him and kind of just shoots away back into the woods, but not the way it come. Kind of stopped and went straight horizontally from the guys. They all laugh. Haha. We got scared by a deer. George has some, colorful comments to say about his friends and his son. And they're like, screw it, let's end it. It's getting dark now. So they're kind of turned, walking back. They're about 45 minutes from their makeshift camp. And George is like, hold on. I gotta take a pee. So he goes over to a tree and starts to relieve himself. And he yells out, Ronnie, what the hell is above me in this tree? And Ron's like, what do you mean, Dad? Come on back over here. What are you talking about? Something's in the tree? And just as he's walking towards him, he sees George light a flashlight, kind of going up into the tree, looking. Not, he wasn't going in the tree, the light. And he's looking in the tree. Ron can see the light. He sees the light turn on, and he sees it go kind of straight up into the tree. And he's now walking quickly towards his dad. Well, he gets probably 30, 40 feet from his dad. His dad, George, has got his arm up, and he's looking in the tree. Like, I think there's a bear up here. That's probably what was scaring the wildlife, making everything quiet. All of a sudden, he hears his father scream this blood-curdling scream. And, like, seconds. This happens in a matter of seconds. He hears the scream. Or he sees the light. He starts walking over. He hears the scream. And he can see that his father is now elevated by his arm going up into the tree. He's about maybe a foot off the ground. And Ron starts to kind of run at this point, like, what the hell has got my dad? What, you see, imagine the scenario that I just explained to you. You are talking to your father. He's at a vulnerable state taking a pee by a tree. You see his flashlight click on, and you see it then point into the tree. And all of a sudden, you hear this just terrible scream, and you see your father being elevated into the tree. He unholsters his rifle, and he's looking through his scope, which, like I said, it was a thermal, not a night vision. And what he sees is a shape of some, he can't really make out the body. He sees an arm, and he sees his father's arm, and he sees something's got his dad's arm almost above the wrist a little. And he sees this kind of hunched blob of, and it's the way this Dogman was standing, or stationary in the tree. But he sees ears. He just sees these gigantic ears in his thermal scope. Probably less than 5 to 10 seconds later, Ron has got his rifle raised up, looking, and he hears this another just almost scream, but a pained, like you hit yourself with a hammer in the hand or something. And he sees his father fall to the ground. He's more than 3 feet in the tree, or going up the tree, and his dad lets out this just horrific scream again, and Ron sees him drop. George's two friends they make it to close to where Ron is. They're older, they can't run as fast, obviously. And he sees this wolf head, and it's kind of shimmying up the tree. And he sees his dad laying on the ground, and he runs over and sees that his dad is now missing part of his arm from about an inch below his elbow down is gone. Blood's just pouring out of his arm. Ron quick untakes his belt off and makes a tourniquet as fast as he can, puts it right above or right below his bicep, above where the torn arm would have been, and kind of in that crotch of your forearm and bicep area, and just yanks it tight. Calls to George's friends, get over here, help me. What the hell? You know, he's now in panic mode, and he's pissed at his dad's friends because they're just standing there like idiots. He gets his dad sat up, and he hears this growl and kind of like a shaking. But you know how a squirrel sounds when it shimmies the tree? Something like that, but much, much louder. He takes a shot with his 270 into the tree because he looks up and he can see this thing coming down the tree now. As he's watching this Dogman come down the tree, he takes another shot. A headshot. And it falls to the ground like a thump. He's looking at this creature that's in front of him, and he's looking at his dad and his dad's friends. He's like, call for help. There is cell service here. Call 911. Tell them where we are. Tell them that there was an accident. My dad is bleeding. We have a tourniquet on my dad. That we will meet them on Rim Road. There is a clearing in that area just a little before or after where our camp is. Get them here now. Let them know that my dad is bleeding out. The one friend is sitting or kind of pulling the tourniquet tighter, checking George, making sure he kind of doesn't go into shock. Obviously, he's going to go into shock. But kind of is got this tourniquet clamped tight. The now other friend is standing next to Ron. And they're both looking down at this monster. They can see because this creature's lying face down, and you can see the shot that the initial shot went through its neck and came out the back side of it. There's just like this blowhole. And the last shot, the one that dropped it out of the tree, was either above or below its eye. He couldn't tell at that point. All he could tell was there was just another kind of ripped out hole there. It kind of twitches, and George's friend that's standing next to Ron is carrying a sidearm, and he pulls it out. And it's a .357 revolver. 2 shots. One at the base of the skull, and another one right below the neck shot area. So, pow, pow. kill shots. Nothing, you get shot, anything gets shot in the back of the head right in that area. Your severed spinal cord, brain function is gone. It's dead. The friend has got the helicopter on its way. They kind of get George up and start the walk out. They can hear, probably after like 7 to 10 minutes, they can hear the helicopter. Everyone's talking to George to keep him awake and functioning. This helicopter lands, and 2 paramedic get out, grab George, put him in the helicopter, start working on him, and said, this is the hospital we are going to. Meet us there. We'll take care of your dad and your friend on the way there. And so they get to the hospital. About 4 hours go by. They find out that George is in surgery. 4 hours get by. The surgeon comes out, starts talking to Ron, and says, we saved your father's life. He lost a lot of blood. We did have to, give him a transfusion, and we had to amputate a little more of his arm for the simple fact that we were worried about sepsis, and we wanted to make sure that, there was a decent part of his arm left for a prosthetic fit. Can I see my dad? No, not for a while. Sorry. Okay. Ron walks back to tell George's friends what's going on. He walks into the waiting room and sees 2 gentlemen in khakis and black t-shirts speaking to the 2 men. Instantly, everything stops as Ron walks in. The one guy that was talking to one of the friends tells, go over to where he is, and he starts talking to Ron. So the other guy is now talking to George's friends. Ron is now talking to this guy. We need to, this is me. This is who I am. He sees some credentials. He asks for credentials, like, who the hell are you? Sees a badge, sees the credentials, and it says Homeland Security. And he said, we need to go out and get that bear right now. Do you remember exactly where it was? Ron's like, yeah, but I can't leave the hospital. My dad's here. What the hell do you want? We're leaving. So they get in a Suburban and they drive just probably 20 minutes outside of where the hospital is. There's a helicopter waiting. Ron and the guy get out of the Suburban, get in the helicopter, and head to Caul Island. They locate the body. Homeland Security guy puts it kind of like a geo-tracker thing on the body, and they drive back to Rim Road and park. Nothing said between the two. Nothing. Not a friggin' statement is said. Which is really concerning for Ron. Because now he's outside of his comfort zone. You know, he's far away from his father, who's almost lost his life. He's a ways away from the creature, not really that far, but what the hell am I waiting here for? Why aren't we driving? He doesn't say any of that because literally fear is coursing through his veins. This helicopter, you can hear it, that thunk, 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 thunk. And it's a rather large helicopter with a spotlight just blaring down on the area. I believe it was a Chinook. He's not really familiar with helicopters, but he said, you know, it was large. It was not a small helicopter at all. It was shaped differently than the evac helicopter that had gotten George. 4 men get out, and what they appear to be wearing is kind of like a hazmat suit. And Ron gets the feeling that these guys are wearing this suit not for their protection, but the protection of the crime scene or whatever, where the Dogman is. They want to make, you know, they just, to keep this scene clean. They come back out of the woods probably 25-30 minutes later. So the creature's loaded up onto the helicopter and flown out of there. Ron is then flown back to the area where they had parked the Suburban and brought back to the hospital with this Homeland Security guy. Ron's able to check on his dad. His dad's okay. He sees his dad, tells his dad, you know, hey, everything's going to be okay. You're alive. Thank you. Thank God. You know, let's not talk about anything until, you know, there's someone that wants to talk to us about what happened. They're put up in a hotel room overnight. Ron, George's 2 friends, all in separate rooms. The next morning, Ron is awoken and brought to the hospital by the 2 Homeland Security guys. Where's my dad's friends? They left last night. What do you mean they left last night? They left last night. That's all you need to know. They go back to the hospital, and the one that had taken Ron out to Caul Island again goes into George's room with Ron. Pleasantries are, you know, hello, mister. My name is. I'm here to talk to you about the bear that attacked you and the bear that your son had shot. And George, like I said in the beginning, is, you know, he's a character. You know, he pretty much says, well, that ain't no bear. What are you talking about? That thing was, you know, in a tree and ripped my arm off. Well, that was a bear, sir. And you are not to talk about it. George being George, more colorful expletives are stated, and the Homeland Security guy looks at Ron and looks at George and says, listen, this is how it's going to be. And providing you agree to what we say, you will be compensated. Sign these papers that state you were attacked by a bear, your son saved your life by killing that bear, and you will receive $250,000. No questions asked. Just you have to follow what this paperwork says. Ron looks at his dad and shakes his head like, I'm signing the paperwork, you're signing the paperwork, and we are not talking about this ever again. Paperwork signed. Homeland Security leaves. They're left like, where the hell's our money? 2-3 days go by, and Ron gets a phone call from his bank letting them know that there had been a large deposit made. Pretty much $250,000 in your bank account. Okay, thank you. George then goes through everything, gets his prosthetic limb. About 2-3 weeks go by, and Ron's getting his dad, situated and everything. They call George's two friends. One doesn't answer. The other one does. Hey, how are you? What happened to you? Yada, yada. Oh, we just don't really want to talk about it. How's George doing? Yada, yada. Good. About a couple hours later, he shows up at George's house and says, I really feel bad about that night we left you. We were told to sign some paperwork and we would get some hush money. So that's what we did. We were told that you guys signed the same paperwork and, everything's good. Well, everything wasn't good if you think about it, because those two deals were made prior to George even being awake and offered that deal. So, needless to say, this creature attacked Ron's dad. Government came in, cleaned up the mess, and paid them upwards to $300,000 to cover this whole thing up. Because both men received $25,000. George's friend, each, and George / Ron in Ron's account received $250,000 to keep their mouths shut. That's how they work. And right after Ron heard Jesse's story, he knew that he had to share this. I've never heard the government buying silence. I've heard them threatening silence, but buying silence? And it was a ways ago, so it's nothing new. But that's insane. Anyway. George has since passed. And that's a chapter in Ron's life that he wants to just forget. He's putting his father's house up for sale. Cleared out things that mattered to him. And yeah, so our government is capable of buying people off or rubbing people off or making people look crazy. And there you have it, folks. I hope you all enjoyed tonight's second bonus as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'd like to thank you all for supporting this channel. It is your support that helps the channel to continue to grow and go, and what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we deserve. Please, everyone, stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and friends. These creatures are real. These events have happened. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.